Today's topic is why should journalists write about and think about environmental economics? Hello, everyone. Good to be with you once again. Today, we have with us Gopikrishna Warrier, a leading journalist in India. Over to you, Gopi.
Thank you, Subodh. That's very nice of you. Hello. I'm currently the editor of Mongabay-India, an environment and conservation platform, digital platform, and I've spent the past more than 3 decades in various forms of environment journalism and communication. So, for me, what is important, and this is something that's come very seriously to my understanding in the recent years, is there is a very strong need for us journalists, especially the journalists covering environment, to find the economic linkages, understand the economic linkages, and then articulate about it, because only through us would we be bringing the importance of environmental economics into the public domain, and through the public domain we hope to take it to the policy domain. So that's something that I have understood, because in the recent past, because environment journalism is actually, like in many other fields, it works in silos. So environment journalists usually are different from economic journalists, and economic journalists don't usually talk to environment journalists. So but what we don't realize in our very hardcore environmental journalism is that many of the environment decisions have a strong economic basis for it. So how do we understand those basics? That becomes very important, and especially in the kind of world where we're living in, where economics is driving politics and policy action. There's always a lot of value given to the utility of natural resources, that but not on the value of conserving the natural resources. Let me give you an example. Like if there was to be a dam, with which, if you have the dam, it would submerge thousands of hectares of a rainforest. Then the value that is communicated, economic value that is communicated to policymakers, is the benefits of getting the dam. So that means, how much of megawatts of power you would get, what would be the impact of that, etc., etc. Not much. I mean, there's not much studies happen, and not much is communicated to the policymakers on what is the economic value, sustained long-term economic value of if you let the rainforest stand. So that being the case, I think for society to talk about and the importance of conserving natural resources, biodiversity, and preventing climate change, there is a very strong reason that media should be talking about environmental economics and communicating that to policymakers. And that is what we are doing right now in Mongabay-India. We are working with the Indian National Society for Ecological Economists. We have a collaboration with them, and we are doing a series of media workshops for journalists, where we are talking on various aspects of environmental economics, like ecosystem value, valuation of ecosystem services, green finance, etc., etc. So that's where we are. I thought this is something very important, and considering the fact that Professor Mathur, you have been working on economics, and your series is on economics, I thought I would bring this today. I can't hear you.
When I was on mute. Actually, I used to teach environmental economics, although I never studied it. But later on, when I actually stopped teaching for some time, and then when I went back to teach, one of the subjects I taught was environmental economics to MA and BA students, because they said, Subodh, you have done so much work on the environment that you might as well teach this course, even though you never studied it and you have never taught it before. I said, fine. So actually, I am quite well aware of environmental economics. And most of the, not most, I say many of the economists I work with, they are well aware. There is no difference between them and environmental economics. And the point that you made about the dams, I think to economists across all categories, it's well known. And there was actually a World Commission on Dams which laid out the guidelines on how dams should be done. So I think the gap is at the level of the communication, not at the level of the academics. The academics know it well, and even in places like the World Bank, it is very clearly understood that there's negative aspects, and people say, oh, the World Bank doesn't really care about the negative aspects, but that's a debate. That's a debate, and I'm not going to defend or attack. What I'm saying is that it is an issue that is commonly discussed and is known that this is an issue. And the things you mentioned, like the environmental value of services and all, this is well known. And actually, I'm planning to write a book within, say, 6 months from now on how to adapt to climate change in India. So mitigation sort of is losing its appeal because it's going to have climate change, right? And how to adapt to it. So I think I would urge you to also focus on adaptation rather than on prevention, let us say what we call as mitigation. Because, like the floods we are now seeing now in India, floods we saw in Pakistan last year, they really call for adaptation. This is going to happen no matter what we do to protect the environment. So we really need to start thinking about in environmental journalism and also in the think tanks, etc. There isn't much really understanding of how to adapt. And in Bangladesh, you already see inland movement of people.
Yes.
Because the coastal areas are vulnerable, and though they have now better warning systems, but still the people know it's vulnerable. So they're moving inland. So there is, let us say, unplanned adaptation. Right? And in India, we need to start really thinking. I don't have any ideas yet. I'm thinking about it. We don't have any ideas well laid out on adaptation. Because really we will have to adapt. There's just no choice to climate change. And you can see the floods in Mumbai and Delhi and even in Jaipur, my hometown. It's like, okay, people are thunderstruck, but this is, anyway, let me not talk more. Let me leave it to you to talk about these things. I just thought I would add that at least the people I know and work with are fully aware of the negative aspects, and we certainly don't ignore it in any way. And recently I had one of the guests, Vinod Thomas. He was actually parallel to the president of the World Bank in the sense that he reported directly to the board, and he had a similar job in the Asian Development Bank after that. He's not reporting to the president of the World Bank, but directly reporting to the board. And he has written a book. He's an economist, and he's written a book on climate change, and he stresses the communication part in it. It just came out this year. So these things, I would say, are known to economists, but they certainly are not spread out to the public. That's why I'm so glad that you are doing it.
Yeah, and that's what we also realized. I mean, and that's why we thought we should, as an organization working on environment communication, and also as a fairly journalist who has been in this field for rather long time. I thought personally it's important that we should be talking about it, because that school of, as you mentioned, the school of taking environmental considerations into economic decisions academically. I think that has gathered steam over a period of time. But that translating into the public sphere, I mean, in academic conferences, in academic meetings, in academic literature, it's there. But translating into the public sphere, I think that there it's not yet got so deeper into the public sphere as vis-a-vis the just plain growth model of economics. So that is one of the reasons why we thought we should start this conversation. And once the media starts this conversation, it sort of picks up. There's a multiplier impact, or we hope we have a multiplier impact. So that's what, as journalists, we have a rather exaggerated view of our own work, but then but we do hope that this has a multiplier impact, and this sort of goes into policy discussions and public discussions, basically. So then that becomes part of the conversation in decisions, not just at the national state levels, where they could perhaps would be having economists to, I mean, they would be having economists to advise them, but even in local level governments and urban local bodies, rural local bodies, etc. So that's what we have been planning to do, and that's something that we have been doing over a period of time. And of course, adaptation. I mean, much of climate change discussions did start with adaptation, and it still continues. I mean, importance of adaptation, because mitigation has limitations. I mean, how much can you do, and how much can a country like India do? I mean, you come to the reality, practicality of growth, where our growth is, and where. So how much can we do beyond? So certain amount will have to be mitigated. I mean, will have to be adapted. So. And it's becoming a reality for us. I mean, 120 millimeters of rain in any average urban center in India causes floods. Now, it's not as if in the past. I mean, in our young age, it's not as if we didn't have 120 millimeters of rain events. I mean, they were, but a combination of factors ensures that it floods. So I think that's happening. So how do we deal with it? How do we deal with heat waves? Because that is becoming a reality. So how do we build heat action plans? So that there is a protocol, and to know at what temperature do you take what action? And what is the situation? So all this. And there's a cost to all this. So there's an economic cost to all this. I mean, and there's that calculations. At what point is it practical to do it? Make an intervention economically. So bringing those arguments into the media space, and then through journalists, into the public space. That's what we are trying to do.
Wonderful. It's what you are doing is very close to my heart. And not just close to my heart, but also to my writings. It's I did write a book on India 2047 2 years ago, and how it will look and how we can become prosperous, or not prosperous, but at least well off by then. And there is a section on the environment. And my conclusion there is, in a way, quite, let us put it, pessimistic. That no political party can prioritize environment over jobs and growth. And I don't mean to criticize one, but I mean to say all of them. They want short-term votes. They want to win the next election. And this doesn't, that's just a judgment, okay? But out of the judgment is a conclusion that really it's up to the non-profit institutions to create the mandate for this, and to actually tell the people that, look, this is what is being planned, but it will hurt your children. It will hurt your grandchildren. To pose it as directly a family issue, long-run family issue. It's not a dam. It's your children's future. Right? So environmental protection, somebody asked me, what is it about? I said, it's about protecting our children. It's not about protecting the environment. Because what we are bequeathing to the next generation, that's what has to be preserved and protected. After all, we got it. Why don't we leave it for the next generation the way we got it? Why are we messing it up so that our children have jobs but don't have the environment, which is natural, So I think it's a very important job to be done by non-profit institutions, and you are, sir. Even if you are for profit, it's like a social enterprise. You are a mix between carrying a social message and making money. So it's a social enterprise. It's outside the government framework, but it's not the old-fashioned NGO. And that's what I wrote in my book, that this has to be done by the young people who are actually quite articulate about it. I talked to many of them. They're quite articulate. And the money has come from those who made money from the 1991 economic change.
Yes.
Before that, there was nobody except
Yeah.
a few handful who had the money. A lot of people have made good money after that. They're living off the efforts of the past. They were taught, we developed software, we developed engineering skills, and those are now giving us the money. And those people should know that it's not their hard work, it's the hard work of the people who built these institutions, who create. I mean, after all, we aren't going to the moon because we formed ISRO yesterday, no?
Yeah.
Somebody created ISRO and somebody trained people to be ISRO capable. And today you are making money and sending people to the moon. And if you are making money, why don't you give some to the young activists who actually want to do something about it? Because to simply say the government should do this, the government should do that, I mean, honestly, will they do it? So unless,
And there's so much of intention too. I mean,
yeah,
there's, in addition to intention, there are so many young people, young professionals today, and
yeah,
that's as you mentioned, is the post 1991 phenomenon. People who are very willing to sort of go and clean lakes and plant trees and protect soil, etc., or do natural farming. So there are young people who not just saying that government should do it,
yeah,
but they are getting down and doing it.
right, they're
So
doing
so
it,
this
right.
is a parallel stream that is happening, and that's the promise that
Yeah.
we are seeing.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's actually for me, that is the best thing. That's the best news. Because writing policy papers, yeah, we can get the policy written at, at the national level. But as you mentioned, it's really the action is at the state and local level. That's where the action is. And
yeah.
unless you have proper, say, garbage collection and disposal, then you are not doing a good job. And if you can't protect, I just look at it. I mean, since Rajiv Gandhi's time, we have been talking of cleaning the Ganga. And that itself shows that, why are we still talking about cleaning the Ganga since 1987, when he enlisted French help? And we are still talking about it because the politicians really cannot get much done. So I'm so happy to hear that there is a voice here. I don't know how you manage to make money, but I won't ask you that. That's your job. But
Yeah.
so long as your message is this, I think it's a wonderful job. So please continue.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, the promise is also something else, because I mean it's a bit of a perverse promise, but a promise nevertheless, is that because I can say that from my personal background. I mean, as I've been a journalist for around 35 years now. In the 1990s, when we talked about, I mean, there were only few of us talking about climate change, etc. Nobody took us seriously. So, but two things have happened. I mean, today there are far more number of journalists and far more number of public, talking about climate change and issues of environment. That's one side. But the other side, the perverse side, has been that what we used to talk about at that time was just was theory, that you could have more of extreme weather events, etc. But in the last 10 years, you are seeing extreme weather events, and that's coming with increasing regularity and with increasing intensity. Uh, so you don't need to tell somebody that, oh, you need to do something. So that drive is happening. I mean, so anybody who has lived through the Chennai floods of December 2015 in Chennai,
Yeah,
or somebody who lives through Mumbai floods almost every year.
right.
You know, I mean, you don't need to tell, or you don't need
No,
to tell an editor, or you
no.
don't need to tell anybody, legislator or a local corporator, that you can have these impacts. So that way, nature has been I mean, not always benevolent, but has been a good teacher. So that's also added to the larger. So this is really the time to talk about. Uh, I mean, what if you don't do these things? What are the costs? What are the economic costs? Because interestingly, I mean, and that's been the change in paradigm since 1991. Since you
Yeah.
took me back to
So no,
that
I'm
part.
glad that you are doing it. And uh, could you just give an example of some messages that you have successfully brought forth, and so that we understand what journalism actually uh, means in this niche field?
No, we have been reporting of many instances of small action in people who have been communities that have been conserving afforesting, or conserving their resources, or working with against uh, reverse perverse development, etc., at locations. And those have come, those stories have come, and they made impact. So for instance, we wrote a piece on the Silent Valley project, I mean, which was like the big deal for anybody who was in India at 1980s. That's the environment. But how that river continues to flow, I mean, that's the only river in which does, I mean, the sister river, which is, I mean, Bharatapura, does not flow in many parts of the year, many. But
Yeah.
this river continues to flow. So I mean, there's been an impact of, one, conserving the rainforest, and two, not building the dam there. So
Mhm.
so I mean, so these kind of stories, when we talk about, that
Mhm.
these are the messages we give. So it's very difficult at a particular point, uh, when a decision is being made, for either the person making the decision, or the society that is discussing it, to see that this could be the positive benefits if you don't take that decision 20 years down. So, but when you go and talk of those stories 20 years later, and say, I mean, if that decision had not gone this way, this would have been the impact. And today, since the dam was not built, we are seeing this impact. So I think that those kind of stories are usually what we see a lot of impact.
Okay, I
And
understand.
now,
Yeah.
that we have, as you mentioned, the attention span is decreasing. So, small videos with interviews with people, or social media supported messages, those carry a lot of impact, and they
Yes.
they really have a lot of impact for
Yeah.
us. So that's been the kind of work that we've been
So,
doing.
who are the subscribers to your output?
Mongabay-India is like Mongabay Global. I mean, Mongabay-India is a subdomain of Indians, India.mongabay.com, which is a subdomain of news.mongabay.com, which has been in existence in the US for more than close to a quarter century now. Mongabay India is 5 years old. We completed
Okay.
5 years. So,
Yeah.
so our readers are people in the people who work. I mean, it's a free publication. Anybody can get it by just going to the website
Yeah.
india.mongabay.com,
Yes.
and you can subscribe to the newsletter, so you get it every week in your
Yes.
inbox. And that our readership has been people involved with environment, students, researchers, policymakers, government officials, uh, and a lot of general public. So
Okay.
now our effort now with our work with environmental economics and other work is to bring people who are not necessarily interested in the environment also to this area, because
Yeah.
environmental discussions have that limitations of being restricted to echo chambers. So we want to go beyond echo chambers, and also bring more people into it. So for instance, I mean, if there's somebody who's an automobile enthusiast, I mean, he reviews new cars, and if I can attract him to write a piece on our publication, how some of the new cars are, in addition to giving all that material benefits that a car is supposed to give, is also more environment friendly than the older version, older technology.
Yeah.
Then I'm getting into my fold people who are otherwise auto enthusiasts, who have not thought of environment. So the idea is to bring people who are outside the fold, outside the ecosystem chamber, into the discussion.
So you want to mainstream it.
We want. I mean, in fact, that's what our guiding philosophy for Mongabay-India is. So when we started 5 years ago, we wrote an editorial where we called our editorial. I mean, our editorial policy is to mainstream biodiversity. So basically, and because we are a conservation and environment organization, our starting point is biodiversity conservation. We talk about species, landscapes, etc. But how do you take that into all areas of economics, environment, politics, etc., so that gets mainstreamed into. So that's been the guiding principle under which we have been doing our work in the past 5-6 years.
Wow, it's very nice. I'm happy to hear of it, and certainly hope that you will make it work. Because we need to reach the people. And are you thinking of shifting at least some of it to Indian languages, or it's only
English? Yes, we already have Hindi. We already have Hindi so we have hindi.mongabay.com.
Yeah.
It's been there for 2 years now. And we have worked with Hindi for an entirely different readership. So what we are not doing is, we're not just taking English content and translating it into Hindi, but there are so many stories which are pitched, commissioned, and written and reported from the Hindi reader's perspective. So because the worldview is different, the worldview. So looking at that, so we already have Hindi. We have relationship with other language publications who pick up some of our stories and they translate it, like Madhrubhumi does that in Kerala. Sometimes, Lok Satta did that in Maharashtra. So some Prajavani did that in Kannada. So some stories they pick up and they translate, because our strength is we are on Creative Commons. So it's Creative Commons non-derivative. So anybody can use our content and so the multiplier impact is high. So
that's wonderful. It's a great idea, and I fully agree that the content cannot just be translated. It has to originate in the region, in the language. And so I think that's a great thing that you are doing. I think we are sort of coming to the end of our recording. Anything else you want to add?
No, thank you very much for the opportunity, and thank you for having me on your show. And I'm sure the show will grow from strength to strength, and it's a wonderful opportunity.
It's just something new for me, because I'm not a video guy at all. But let's see where it goes. But thank you. I really enjoyed listening to it, and it's not something that I knew, that people are writing in Hindi on the environment and they are delivering it as a journalism, because it's not something that one knows all the time. I think there's a lot of young Indian economists who could write for you.
Yes.
Because they are very keen on these issues and they could write for you. Okay, so I think,
in fact, we have carried a few, and we are really looking forward. I mean, if through this program, if there are more economists who are willing to write for us.
So I would say that, look, to the people who watch this, that look, please consider contributing in some way, whether through whatever way works for you. Please contribute to this, because ultimately my point still remains that Nobody is saying in Delhi that I will fix the winter air pollution in X years. There's not one leader. I cannot find a single leader who says, I will fix the Delhi air pollution, which happens every year and hurts everybody's health, even if you stay indoors, but it hurts everybody's health. And so I'll fix it in X years. There's no one. No one has the guts to make such a statement, and nobody wants. They just blame each other, they bicker and they fight. I mean, when you look at it from a distance, it's just like saying, they are doing it, I'm not doing it. Okay, fine. So who's solving it? Nobody. So ultimately, the young people will have to do something about such things. They have to step up, because the political leaders, they're just not up to it. For whatever the reason is, short-term elections and all that. So we do live in a democracy, which is a great thing. But then we know that, at least I know that, I shouldn't say we, I think that we need this activism. And otherwise we will be in big trouble. So I think we agree on that. So let's end it here. And hopefully, perhaps we'll catch up with you 1 year from now to see.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
What you have done, where you are, how is it growing, so that we get a progress report. Until then, let's say bye to the viewers, and bye-bye, everybody. I'll be back soon with another expert or young person. Bye-bye.